Hey, folks, welcome to Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn. Carlos, this is going to be a habit, or maybe it's a pattern. How are you handling this, by the way, all this winning? I haven't really checked in on your mental health in a while. You're not used to it. The fan base, I don't know that they're still used to it, but another Lions win. I'm sure you got all sorts of thoughts rolling around in that big brain of yours. And by the way, nice to see you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I thought you were talking about like the Red Wings preseason winning or something, but you're talking about the Lions. Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, the Lions or Wolverines. It's just it's a lot. It's funny because we come from different sort of perspectives, and you just want winning after winning after winning because it creates more readership for you. It ups your profile. I like interesting stories, and I don't care if teams win or lose. In fact, the losing sometimes is more interesting because there's usually more drama. But the winning, for the Lions specifically, you can speak more to Michigan, but the Lions specifically, like Dan Campbell makes it interesting, and the roster and the injuries and Jameson Williams coming back, all that kind of, it's kept it interesting. It hasn't been, winning can be boring as a journalist. Winning can be boring if there's too much of it, the same way that losing can be kind of boring if there's too much of it. So I like variety, Shawn. I like some drama. Fans are probably really mad at me. All they want is, undefeated season after undefeated season. I get it, but, in our business, and you'll disagree with me, but I like variety. But you just want unabated, uninterrupted winning from here until, Dan Campbell retires in 20 years with 10 Super Bowls.
I don't want that at all. I want you to be in tune with the market you're working in. That's what ultimately, that would be my goal for you, is to understand and to just not dismiss a decade of losing maybe 8 years.
A decade of losing?
A decade of more or less losing from all four pro sports teams, right? There's not been a playoff win or a playoff series, right. I think, in at least a decade. I feel like that's probably enough.
Well, a series win. Okay, yeah. Pistons.
Series win or and we all know about the Lions. It's 1991 was the last time. So, I would hope that you would understand that a decade's probably enough losing for all four teams for this region and these fans, and that you're talking about variety. I don't know that you really care about variety, because if you did, you'd enjoy writing different storylines with this winning, at least with the Lions. And I'm not worried about my own profile. The truth is, and we don't want to get too inside baseball here, but the truth is, well, first of all, nothing drives a newspaper in a regional newspaper like us. Forget the Times, the Washington Post, or whatever. But for us, nothing drives it like an NFL team, unless you're in one of the maybe rare baseball towns like St. Louis or whatever. LA. That's number one. But number two, just in general sports, and these days, the way our businesses are set up, a winning team can literally mean you might get to hire a couple more reporters. So I kind of think about it like in that way. And what the companies are trying to do. I mean, it's not that you sit there and you root. You're still impartial, and you got to write it that way. But of course you want to see the business succeed. I mean, that's the thing. It lifts everybody up. So we'll see what happens with the Lions. They're going to have to keep this up. But that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, in our business, obviously we work in sports, but like the UAW strike, right? That's not a pleasant thing, but that's creating a lot of interest. Generally, like in the news department, in the news sections of the paper, it's usually drama, strife, violence, things like that, that create a lot more interest in sports. I guess it's
Barbies dressed as state troopers.
That too, yeah, absolutely. Controversy and for sports though,
puppies.
Winning definitely. People love a winner. That's why they love Shawn Windsor. So it's hard to argue that point. You're right, Shawn. But I just want an interesting team. How about that? Interesting teams to cover.
No, that's fine. But think about it this way too. And I agree with you on losing, but losing is most interesting when it comes around winning. I mean, if you're just losing all the time, that's not interesting at all. But losing The losing you're talking about, the drama you're talking about, the heartache and all that, that comes when a team is really good and loses when there's something really at stake. That's the most interesting kind of loss. And we haven't had a chance to write about a big loss in a while, right? I mean, I can't remember the last time, a heartbreaking, wrenching, gut punch loss. It's been a while.
I think that I haven't been a big time fancy sports columnist as long as you have, Shawn. So I didn't have the luxury of just not coming to practices and games. I didn't want to. So I had to be there for all the ugliness of all those years of the 0-16 and all the Jim Caldwell stuff and the Schwartz stuff and the Marinelli stuff. It was interesting in its own way because, you could see the team trying to get better, but failing often, and some success here and there, fleeting success. But the whole thing, with Bob Quinn and 97 wasn't good enough, and trying to get rid of Caldwell as soon as he could so he could hire Patricia, all that stuff. The dramatic arc of that team, of the Lions specifically, and football, I think, is more. It's the closest thing that you have to a soap opera in sports, in pro sports in this country. Because it's just they play so few games that it's all just talk, and preparation and whatever, and hand-wringing throughout the week for 6 days. And then you get to the game and then you see what happens. But there's so much that goes into it, right? And that's to me, I guess I come from a different background where I had to live in the world of losing for so long that I had to find a way to adapt and kind of just get comfortable with all the losing and find interesting things, or else I would have gone crazy.
Well, you're acting like you're the only one that's written in the sports department in the Free Press. Everybody who's worked in our department, my very good friend, has had to write about losing for a decade, except for Michigan football and Michigan State basketball. And I would argue this point. Ask our boy Dave Burkett how quickly the other reporters and columnists dropped off when the Lions were losing. And as far as I know, for every year there's a columnist at every single game, right? Now you're talking
how
about
many practices?
More practices or whatever. So they go to fewer practices, but where else are you going to go? You're still going to write about. No, the games are the same. We're not contracted, but we have to. I've been at the same amount of
I'm
games
not
every
naming
year.
names, but you know that I'm right about fewer people.
No, you're not. You're what you're talking about is different. I'm talking about just the bulk of us that have to write, with a certain amount of frequency every week have been writing about losing, except for Michigan football recently. And Michigan football, Harbaugh had some winning when he first took over. Even they struggled some. Michigan State basketball and stretches of Michigan basketball. Other than that, it's been pretty well. Michigan State football too. Let me throw that in. They had a great run, but yeah, the pro sports side of it has been. You can't just leave the Lions and say I'm going to go write about the winning Wings or the Pistons. It's so we've all been writing about losing for a long time. But here's what I'm thinking about, Carlos. Let's just say they make the playoffs this year and they win their first playoff game. And right now, everybody's like, "Oh God, wouldn't it be great? We win the division." I keep hearing this more and more. I don't know about you. I'd be curious if you've heard this too. I keep hearing, "Oh, I just want them to win the division, have a home playoff game, and win that game. Like that's enough." Here's the fact, though: if they do that, that means they're going to be in the NFC Championship game more than likely. And if they lose that on a last-minute drive or field goal or whatever, I mean, the experience will have been great because they haven't been in that game in 30 whatever years. 91, I think, was the last time. That'll be great. That's part of sports. That's the drama you're talking about. But that will be really painful to have lost because once they're there, they're like, "Oh, we're that close to the Super Bowl," and then they lose. And they're not going to say same old Lions or anything like that. That's the normal arc of a regular franchise that makes it run into the playoffs and then has a loss because everybody loses except for one team, right? So that will be interesting to write about to me if we get to that.
Oh, if anybody who says that's all I want is just a bald-faced liar who's delusional and
they don't want to get greedy, Carlos. right?
Yeah, no. This
They're
team,
so used to losing, they don't want to get greedy. That's what they're saying.
yeah, right. They're going to be like, "Oh, we're good. We're good, Coach Campbell. You beat the Falcons or whatever, and now we're going to go to Philly, and okay, it's okay if we lose." To get that close, and they're going to, what everybody's going to say is, "This is our chance. This is the one that we waited so long."
When they get there, for sure.
Yeah, the team's never going to be this good again, and we're going to lose Ben Johnson, who's behind everything, and all that stuff. And so they know. So it's the total. You know what? I'm a sports fan, and I used to say this too about the Dodgers. You know what? I just want to get to a World Series. And when they got to a World Series recently, I'm like, dang it, they better win it, because it's been 1988. It's been a long time.
No question.
So that I appreciate the sentiment, but it's completely horsepucky. They're
you know what it is.
Once they win a game, they're going to lose their minds, and it's going to be Super Bowl party. You're not going to be able to buy Super Bowl decorations in Detroit.
No. If that were to actually happen, and they did win a playoff game, the problem is that fans can't imagine it right now, right? And most of half the fan base, at least, has no experience with it,
right?
So right. So there's no memory of it at all. There's no sense. So right now you're just thinking, there's very little memory of winning the division. So right now you're like, oh God, wouldn't that be amazing to win the division and actually host a playoff game? That would be, that feels a little bit less far out there each week, especially looking at the rest of the NFC North, obviously. But yeah, no, I look forward to the day with all our teams, all the city's teams, when we can write about the process at that point, learning how to win and the pressure moments and the big moments with a lot at stake. And to me, that's the most interesting stuff. Is there anything more fun than watching a young team kind of figure it out and get better? And most teams don't just figure it out immediately and win right away. Occasionally that happens, but right.
Yeah,
that's just, it's different.
The thing I wonder, what I wonder is, I think last year, if they'd gotten into the playoffs last year when they were surging and they had that great finish, and everybody was like, whoa, where did this come from? It was an amazing turnaround from the start of this season. That would have been, people would have lost their minds over playoff success because it came out of nowhere. Now, I think we're at the point now, even a third of the way through the season now, people are expecting them to win the division. They're expecting them to make the play. It would be a massive, massive surprise and disappointment if they didn't make the playoffs or win the division. Even if they win the wild card, get to the wild card, I think that would be a disappointment. Like, they expect a division title here and rightly so. So does that take a little bit of the I don't know, joy or whatever out of it when you already expect success? Does that change it? Because we don't have experience with that, as you said.
No, yeah, I don't think so, Carlos. It's a good question. I don't think so. I was telling this to somebody the other day. Let's just say they win the division and make a little bit of a run and win a game and get to it lines up and they get to the NFC Championship game. That sounds crazy, but that this theoretically could take one win, right? If you get the bye,
possibly if they get the second seed.
Yeah, if you get the bye, okay.
Right now they're the third seed, and they'd have to play Atlanta, and then they'd have to go to Philadelphia.
Yeah, which would yeah, exactly. So in any case, let's say some of that unfolds. Well, the feeling that I have, that I get not have, but the feeling I sense and what I hear from people and overhear and all of that, just being around sports all my life, you get one chance, not one chance, but you only have what's happening right now with the Lions only happens once if they follow through this season. I'm not talking about a Super Bowl win, but just a deep run of the playoffs. That first year where everything feels a little bit different, and I'm sorry, this doesn't feel like 2011 or even 2014 because of the Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, because of their combined effect and how people are relating to them. After struggling on and off for so many decades, you only get one time to rise up. And that elation is just unmatched for sports fans. That doesn't mean, let's just say they would win the Super Bowl this year. That'll go down, right? That'll be how will anybody ever top that in their life, in their fandom life of the Detroit Lions? And they come back and do it again next year. And that would be enjoyed. People would love it next year, but it wouldn't feel the same as the first time. There's only one first time. I don't know if this season will complete that run or not, but I'm fascinated by that idea, right? Like when the Red Sox finally won the World Series and then they went on to win, three more? And I'm sure those Boston fans loved it, but nothing was like that first World Series.
Yes, you're right. You never get to go to the Super Bowl for the first time a second time, right? You never get to make that run a second time. So yeah, I mean, but then again, like the Carolina Panthers are a good example, right? When they made the Super Bowl with Jake Delhomme, and then they lost. I forget who they lost to, but then they made it again. Patriots, yeah, of course. Just the default is the Patriots, and then they make it again with Cam Newton, and they lose to Peyton Manning, the Broncos.
You're either losing to Tom Brady or Peyton Manning in those days.
Yeah, the history of the NFL is that, or Terry Bradshaw probably, or Troy Aikman.
Yeah.
So that's that, and those. I don't know. I'm guessing it was about 15 years apart, something like that. Those two runs, and I don't know. I mean, right now, the last time the Lions won the division was 93. So it's been 30 years. So if you're a 15-year-old kid, I guess you could remember it around that. You're 45 right now. If you're a little bit older, if you were our age, you're dead. So there's not that many people who probably remember it, well, I guess there are. I guess you can be in your 60s and still be a Lions fan. We get those emails all the time, actually. So
yeah, we do.
Yeah, but it's been far enough, right? I mean, but yeah, you going on this run, and Lions obviously have not ever been to the Super Bowl, so I think people would be they would be thrilled. And you know what? And speaking as a non-Detroiter, non-Michigander, didn't grow up here. I'm a Michigander and Detroiter, of course, because I live here, but I didn't grow up here. Having an outsider's perspective, this fandom deserves it because of the Browns fans, the Lions fans. I mean, they're so just into these teams and so loyal. They deserve it.
It's not Carolina, right, Carlos? I mean, that's the difference. You're right. Those fan bases, or that fan base, probably enjoyed both of those runs similarly. Maybe the first one felt slightly different, But the difference is, first of all, that Charlotte's like a small Atlanta. It's like a smaller Atlanta. It's a city of transplants. It's I mean, they're definitely at this point people.
There's no soul in Charlotte.
Obviously, there are people that are born and raised in Charlotte. I have friends in Charlotte who raised their kids there and they went to North Carolina, et cetera. But they don't have 6 decades, 7 decades, 6.5 decades of this history. And that makes it, the suffering makes it more meaningful. It just, I don't know if we talked about this in the podcast. Maybe we did, but Tom Izzo was talking about this last week in the Michigan State Basketball's media day, that he likes to talk to his players all the time about how success feels better and means more when it's come out of adversity or something, frankly, that's painful. And that's what this fan base is going to feel. I liken it to, I think about as a parent, for those of y'all that have more than one child, you love your kids the same. I remember when my youngest was born, and I loved him just the same. But my oldest made me a parent, and I'm already a parent the time the next one comes around. So you don't have that feeling again. And I think it'd be similar with the first time the Lions actually got to a Super Bowl. It would be fun, and you'd probably love the run in a lot of ways the same the next time. But boy, there's nothing. I mean, you step into a different place the first time.
You literally just said you love Jake more than Sam. That's what you said.
No, I said you
love your oldest boy more. Oh my Lord!
You love him the same, but Jake made me a dad. Right? So I
can hear tears right now as Sam's listening to this.
No, Jake would actually tell you that Sam's my favorite, but that's not true. I don't have a favorite. I love them the same, but only one makes you a parent the first time, and that's I liken it to That's kind of how I think about it. By the way, real quickly, I was talking to my brother the other day, not to make this a family show, and he's got a son who's at the University of Michigan. He's got a daughter who's at Michigan State. And he was talking to his son recently, and all his friends and at U of M, a lot of whom are from larger metropolitan Detroit, and they were all talking about how they literally can't wait to get. Now, Michigan's on and we're going to talk about Michigan later in the show. What are they? 6-0, 7-0, 7-0, 6-0, 6-0, and could potentially win a title this year. Who knows? And they're great, and it's fun. But all these kids we're talking about. Sundays. That's the day they're looking forward to. It's all about Sunday. They plan ahead of time to get to Sunday. And my brother was talking about, he said, I don't ever remember that. And I've heard that from other people. Like they cannot wait to get to Sunday. And that's what's going on in our region right now. And for Michiganders all over the country, for that matter, because we hear from them, right?
I mean, it's new. It's new. And I think even I don't know. I mean, I don't know that many diehard Michigan football fans, but I just wonder how, and we're going to get to Michigan football, but how maybe tiresome or not tiresome, but it's not exhausting, draining. I don't know what the adjective you want to use, but Jim Harbaugh can be on a fan base. He's tough. He's tough on a fan base because of various reasons. He's not warm and cuddly. He wins a lot, but he's hard. He's hard to relate to, I think. And Dan Campbell is straight out of NFL coaching head casting, right? I mean, everybody just loves Dan Campbell. He's fun and all that. And it's new, and especially, and you know what, the kids, your brother's kids, right? And the Michigan thing. I mean, they probably. There's a good chance that they were Lions fans before they were Michigan fans, before they knew they were going to go to Michigan, right? Or whatever. Maybe you've grown up in a Michigan household and you've always, go blue and all that stuff. But if you haven't, you've probably been around the Lions in some fashion because it's the region's team, the state's team, except for those losers in the UP who have all those green and yellow signs on their yards. But
and a few Bears fans over on the west side.
Right over there in Sagatuck, whatever. And so but I was going to ask you because you missed your chance, but you were saying the difficulties, the struggle make the winning more rewarding, and you wrote a good column about Taylor Decker, the left tackle who played his 100th game Sunday against Carolina, and talked about the ache and the struggle and how fans have been through it as well, and he's really gotten a strong appreciation of that. What did you get from him? And I think you mentioned that he's never felt like a loser. He's always felt like a winner, but it's been tough.
Because and he's like, well, you don't want to think of yourself as a loser, but the record says I'm a loser, right? So you're dealing with the fact, what's in your heart and soul, and then you're dealing with the reality outside and of your body and your mind and wherever the soul starts or stops. And I don't know, with you, your soul encompasses, is everything, right?
Yeah.
So but that's different. That also has a lot of responsibility with it. It's like Jim Carrey when he becomes God, and all of a sudden everybody's praying to him around the world, and he's got the responsibility. You're carrying that kind of weight. But no, I just
Bruce
Taylor
Almighty.
Decker, yeah, Bruce Almighty. Oh, yeah,
although God lives in Buffalo, so obviously because Bill's Mafia. He's part of the Bill's Mafia.
Exactly. But you're absolutely right. It's interesting because Taylor Decker is, I don't know if he's beloved or not, but there's a real deep appreciation for him because he's been here a while. And anytime I think there's a player because most of the time when a team struggles and by the time they're really good, it's generally an entirely new team. Very rarely are there people left, and there might be a few. Football a big enough roster, and I think fans just appreciate, respect that. They also know he's really good, even though it's probably hard to tell why he's good. Well, you and I have talked about it all the time with offensive linemen in particular, right? At least defensive linemen you can see a little bit more, but he didn't let the quarterback get sacked. I guess he's pretty good, whatever. But right,
they make a mistake.
But they connect with him because of the longevity, because the analysts, talk about how good he is. So they hear people they respect saying he's good. The coaches say he's good, his teammates, etc. And let's face it, he's real, man, right? He speaks from the heart. And you and I have covered a lot of athletes. He's really enjoyable to talk to, because of that. And I think fans sense that.
The linemen, they're generally they have the linemen who like to talk and who are veterans and been with the team for a long time. They generally have the pulse of the team. Guys like Decker and Dominic Raiola, you can go to them and
another great talker. Yeah.
Another great talker. And it's funny because it used to be back in the day, right? Like the offensive line were not supposed to talk. They were supposed to be the strong, silent types and whatever. And we don't look for attention and whatever. I mean, it changed, but those guys are always interesting to get their thoughts on, because they have to understand they're really smart. You got to be really smart to play offensive line. You don't have to be an amazing athlete, because they're the worst athletes on the team, but they're smart and they have to make up for their athletic deficiencies in many ways by being smart, right? Otherwise they'd be defensive linemen who, could rush the passer and get the glory stats and everything else. But they're, and they stick around. The good ones stick around for a long time. That's why this line has been around for a long time, right? So yeah, Decker has definitely been one of my favorite lions to talk to over the years. And, he always brings interesting perspective. My favorite thing about Decker, you and I are in the locker room all the time, and fans don't get to see this as much, but if you ask him a question, he likes to pause and look around. He looks up and he takes a big inhale and he considers his answer, and it's just who he is. He's not trying to be dramatic or whatever, but I love the Decker pause.
Yeah, no, he's very thoughtful, and I think I just think there's a deep appreciation, because I think fans sense that he's suffered, and he's spoken about that suffering, and he's been honest about that suffering, and he knows they have suffered, and there's a connection because of it, and it's like they've suffered together, and that's why I wanted to write about that a little bit the other day, and I think that's kind of interesting, and if they get really really good, he's going to enjoy it as much as anybody.
He had a good observation or comment on Sunday when he said, the hardest part for him when they were bad and really struggling was he wanted to help them get better, but he didn't know how to do that other than just he was overwhelmed. It was beyond him. Yeah, I mean, and I'm sure every player kind of feels that way, but I mean, quarterbacks feel like they have more agency probably because they have a lot more to do with where the ball is going and how things turn out and decisions. And linemen basically, hey, here's the play. Here's what you're blocking and what you're doing, and that's it. And a lot of players do that. But I think probably you feel that, right? If you're a receiver and hey, I caught a short 7-yard pass and I'm turning into a 20-yard gain. I did something. But linemen are literally stuck on the line of scrimmage. They really can't go very far on pass plays, and run. Yeah, they can block, and so it's harder for them. They serve this limited function, a very important one, but a limited function.
Critical function, right? Like critical function. I mean, it's the central function.
And the only time you ever noticed usually is when you mess up and you miss a block or whatever, and your guy gets tackled or sacked, or Burkett, names you in his grade saying, hey, really good, backside block on this end around or this run up the middle or whatever it is. And think about one of the fun plays, right, that they had was the snap between Goff's legs, the direct snap to Montgomery that he got a first down on. Nobody mentioned Frank Ragnow once on that whole thing, and he was instrumental to making that happen, of not snapping the ball too high and hitting Goff where it was going to be hard to get hit. All that nobody talks about. And one thing is Ragnow never talks, so he doesn't like to talk at all. He's old school, but yeah, I mean the linemen just don't get enough. Penei Sewell, when he catches, and that's the funny thing. Sewell has a different game, right? Because he's more emphatic and he plays with the kind of an angry violence to him, which is fun. And he's caught passes before. And, but generally those guys, they're just this, nameless, thankless blob in the middle, and they don't get enough credit. And that's hard. It's hard to do that. Even if you're getting paid a lot of money, it's a really tough job and position. Even they're big guys, the lineman, the guard for the Panthers, Chandler Zavala, could show you, and we know, Mike Utley from the time here, it's like you can get hurt really easily. These guys play through a lot of pain, a lot of injuries. They're some of the tough. They're probably the toughest guys on the team, because it's constant contact on every single play. But Decker probably didn't get enough credit. It's good. I'm glad they brought him to the podium so that he could have kind of a press conference on his own, and he was up there a long time. A lot of respect from the people who cover him. But yeah, the struggle, and it would be nice, right? You think about someone like Decker, it would be nice for someone like him to enjoy a playoff win.
No, for sure, because he cares so much about winning, and it was a really nice moment. And he did get put up on the video board and got a nice round of applause. I have one more quick thought about the Lions I wanted to talk to you about, but we need to take a break, and we also need to get to Michigan and your favorite subject, Jim Harbaugh. So let's come back with a last thought here on the Lions and some Michigan football after this quick break. Welcome back to Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn. Okay, here's the last thought I had, Carlos, and we will obviously talk about this more as the season goes on. But you wrote about Ben Johnson, and hey, enjoy him while you can. He may be gone next year. If the defense keeps it up, who knows? Maybe Aaron Glenn might get a shot at some point. But this goes with winning, and Lions fans aren't used to this. And if you're trying to build a program. They're trying to get
rid of the coordinators.
Yeah, exactly. It's just so new, and and so it's not easy to find. I mean, Ben Johnson's obviously really, really talented, and hopefully he'll succeed when he gets a shot as a head coach. But the best franchises and the teams that go on sustained runs have head coaches that have a certain culture and can identify coordinators that will come in and do something similar. And that's the key. And we're going to find that out. Where I have a pretty good feeling. You obviously have a really strong feeling that we're going to find out if Dan Campbell can do that. But that's what the best coaches also do. They don't just win in a given season. They have to go replace staffs, because winning teams produce coaches for other franchises. That's just how it goes. We're just not used to that around here.
Well, we're going to find out, and I'm concerned about it, and because Campbell got it wrong, at the beginning with Anthony Lynn, right? He had to demote him, essentially fire him without firing him halfway through his first season. But he was smart enough to know, like, he'd known Ben Johnson and worked with him and whatever, and so he used him as the passing game coordinator, and then promoted him to offense coordinator the next season. And it's been amazing, but he didn't get it right the first time. And even with Aaron Glenn, they have a good defense right now, but it's really been a struggle the first 2 years. And it'd be one thing if he'd hired, if this was the first year or even the second year of Campbell's tenure, and let's say the defense struggled the first year, but then they caught fire under Glenn, took him a year or whatever to kind of shake things out. But Johnson was good from the get-go. You would have a lot more confidence saying, "Oh, he knows how to find talent." It's hard to do that. It's hard to replace good coordinators for anybody. I mean, look at the Patriots; they're struggling too, as they've lost people. So, and even though Belichick has a lot to do with it, but it's going to be hard. The one thing about offense for Campbell, at least though, is he called the plays. He has a feel for it, so that may help in that. I think he has a stronger sense of that than maybe what happens on defense. But I don't know if Aaron Glenn will leave. But we're going to find out.
Yeah, we will. I don't know if he'll leave either. I just
not this year. I don't think with one good season under his belt after 2 terrible seasons, I don't think people are going to be lined up to say, unless he's got a buddy somewhere, which that's what a lot of the NFL is about, right? Is connections and who you worked with. If you worked with this general manager before, or these people in personnel, or a team, whatever, it's all about often about who you know. But I doubt that he would leave. But Johnson's gone. There's just no way. He's just.
Well, the thing about Ben Johnson is Dan Campbell has said, and he said this a couple of times, the reason he promoted him was because he sees the game like he does, and that's a great sign. I mean, and I'm sure that's the truth. And Lynn maybe did in theory, but Lynn struggled to take his vision with the talent, with the players. Maybe it was more of a rhythm thing with the play calling, in which Campbell took over the play calling, right? So. And he wanted somebody that saw play calling and saw offense like he did. And he said that about Ben Johnson. They just have to be aligned. And I would imagine not to do that again. In fairness to Aaron Glenn, and one thing about Ben Johnson, Johnson's got one of the 2-3 best offensive lines to work with. If you do that, if you have that gives you a lot of latitude to try a lot of different stuff. Aaron Glenn did not have the second or third best defensive line when he took over. That to me is the biggest difference. One side had an elite unit in the trench, which allows you to do lots of stuff, and the other side did not. They have become pretty good, and thus the defense has gotten a lot better. So the talent obviously matters a lot to me.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, that's definitely important. And he's been, Johnson said, the offensive line for him is his warm blankie, whatever he called it.
Yeah.
It's a comfort, but also and you never know how much of this is, they've drafted, Penei Sewell, and now the defense drafts, Aiden Hutchinson, and that has helped. And they've devoted resources to the defensive line with, Wuzurike, who hasn't worked out, Aline McNeil, Josh Pascal. It's not like they haven't been. So the question is, chicken or the egg, right? Is it they haven't gotten the most out of talent, or is the coaching not getting the most out of talent? Is it Ben Johnson, who's, Hank Fraley's been there a while. He's gone through 2 regimes at least, so he's a really good offensive line coach. That has helped. So it's not just, hey, we magically got this player and they're amazing. I mean, these guys predated some of them, right? Ragnow and Decker, and I think Jackson also predated Ben Johnson.
They did. No, yeah, that's my point.
But he's also using them, and we never saw Penei Sewell. Well, he was a draft pick, but he's using that offensive line, well. And even Taylor Decker talked about that, right? Of the interesting thing with Ben Johnson is that he calls some plays, and he requires a lot of his players, including the offensive line, to execute it, but he trusts that they're going to get it done, and it's on them and they love that. They love having those expectations and then trying to live up to them. So that's part of his unique success too.
For sure. But Jared Goff, Jared
Goff is the blue chip example of why Ben Johnson is going to get another job.
Yeah, but it's not. But to me, it's more the line. I mean, and I don't want to take anything away from Goff. Goff had some success at LA as well for the Rams, and he throws a really good ball. I think he throws an underrated ball, and he's got talent. For sure. And he's older now, and he's more mature, and he's got thicker skin, and all of those things that come with experience and all of that. But the best thing about Goff's experience with the Lions is he's throwing behind one of the best couple of lines in football. So he's got time. If he doesn't have time, what's he look like? Right? I mean, like any quarterback. Especially
the Rams had a good line too, even at the end. They did, right? It's not like Andrew Whitworth was garbage. I mean, that dude was a beast.
No, they had a good line. They had a really good line there for a minute. No, for sure. But
Goff to me is it's that he was according to Sean McVay, as much as he was hot garbage. He was just left for dead with the Rams. probably was going to trade him for a used Pontiac Aztec if he would have been happy with that. And he was a reclamation project, and Ben Johnson turned him into a Pro Bowler again. Helped bring that out of him to be the most generous that you can be if you're Shawn Windsor. So, that is the sign that you point to, is that this guy made Jared Goff good again, or brought it out of him. And this is why if he's going to get the Chargers job, right, we got to get the most out of. There's a significant investment in Justin Herbert. We got to get the most out of him. That's the number one thing in a coaching candidate is who do you pay the most? A quarterback. Who's going to make the quarterback look good, right? That's why a lot of offensive coordinators get jobs, head coaching jobs, because they make the most important player good or function, make the team go that way. So, but the offensive line definitely helps. But that's also, it comes and goes, and as good as some players are, and there's injuries, and that's the problem. One of the reasons I don't like the offensive line is because you need 5 pieces to work together, 5 things, and that means 5 things can also go wrong. And they always talk about, this 5 hasn't played together or whatever. Yeah, because there's so many, variables that can lend itself to one guy's hurt, and then that changes the chemistry, and then this guy has to come in, and this guy has to move to left tackle instead of right, So it's kind of fool's gold to just hope that you're going to have this amazing offensive line. Have 2 elite tackles. That's what you need.
No, but you got to have it. You got Philadelphia had the best line of football last year. Then the Super Bowl. Kansas City had a top 5 line there in the Super Bowl. If you don't have a really good line, you're not going to win big. You're just not. No, I don't know that unless you are a super mobile quarterback. But even those guys have to stay in the pocket and throw at some point. And like Matthew Stafford's thrown behind the Rams line is terrible right now, and it's been trending that way for the last couple of years. It was solid Stafford's first year when they won the Super Bowl, and it's just gotten worse the last couple of years. Whenever the Patriots would stumble, it was often because they had injuries along the line, or that, like you said, it ebbs and flows. When it was humming, man, they were really, really, Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, right? But that's the thing. So yeah, Ben Johnson's really good, but Jared Goff does not look like this if he's not behind this particular line. That's just as much a part of it. And I think any quarterback would tell you that. If you don't have time, what are you going to do?
So wherever he interviews, he has to bring the Lions offensive line with him, because otherwise he won't be very good.
No, he's just not going to win if he doesn't have an offensive line to work with.
That's part of the challenge of coaching. You got to have everybody you got to have an offensive line. But you mentioned the Chiefs; those guys were not all first rounders, and that's my one quibble with the offensive line. You don't have to spend first round after first round.
Well, no, I'm not talking about the draft. I'm talking about can you find guys that are really good? Of course, you can find them outside of the first round.
He knows what he's doing. He'll find guys. But
you got to have you got to have that. That's the thing. We don't.
That's working. You mentioned this before. The head coach, and the GM kind of shouldn't be friends, but they, it is with Holmes and Campbell. They work together, but they kind of have sometimes opposing motivations, right? So Johnson's going to have to work with his general manager to make sure he gets the guys he needs on the offensive line or other positions, but he knows what it looks like.
Well, he does now, and I'm sure he's learned a lot being around home. I mean, what Holmes and Campbell are doing. I mean, he's talked about how much he's learned. I mean, you can learn a lot from Campbell just holding a room, right, and organizing. I mean, Campbell's the one that schedules all that out and sets the day up. It's not just motivational speaking. There's a lot that goes into that. So I would imagine Johnson's absorbed a lot of that in the last couple of years, and seeing what's work and what's not working. That's another thing about Campbell, and not that we want to make this all about Campbell right now, but he learns and he's figured stuff out, And the next time when he has to go replace Johnson, he's going to think about it and do things differently than when he brought his first offensive coordinator in when he got hired. And it's the beauty of it. But all right, let's. You want to talk about Jim Harbaugh? I assume
your favorite coach, Jim Harbaugh. Yes.
Yeah. Well, he's.
What do you think of Jim Harbaugh?
The dude can coach. I mean, he can.
Meaning he can't do other things?
No. He can coach, man. I mean, he is a heck of a coach. Whatever else you say, he is a really, really good coach. But that's not why you wanted to talk about him.
Well, I want to talk about him because there's supposedly reports out there that he's going to get a new contract and it's going to make him the highest paid coach in college football. And does he deserve
the
it?
Big Ten. I think the Big Ten.
And the Big Ten? It should be college football.
I think the report I saw was going to make him the highest paid in the Big Ten. Yeah.
All right. Well, he certainly deserves that.
I could be mistaken. Sorry.
Although, if Ohio State beats Michigan this year, then Ryan Day will get $1 more than whatever Harbaugh gets.
That's right.
His contract.
That's right.
But what do you think? I mean, is he was kind of you were at the press conference on Monday. He was kind of like squirrely about it, wasn't he? About you just
I don't think of him as squirrely. He's quirky
about that specific topic.
Not really. He just said he felt wanted, and he more or less said if you do certain things, and he kept gesturing, like taking his 2 forefingers together, pointing them, and then like drawing a contract. Diagram? But it really looked like he was taking his fingers to air draw a check, like a paycheck. but he was saying contract as he was drawing it in the air. But he was basically saying, hey, if everybody's happy and you have success or you win or whatever, that's usually reflected in the contract. I mean, I didn't think he was, and he said he felt wanted and wanted to stay. I didn't think he was really squirrely at all. He even talked about it. Sometimes he would not talk about it at all. He was actually in a fun mood and showed us a part that I don't know if you saw the press conference.
I didn't know.
And I thought about writing about this, but I had just written about it a couple of weeks ago, so I didn't. But it was funny. It was toward the end of the news conference, and USC played Saturday night, and I want to say late Saturday night. Yeah, they had the night game in Minneapolis, or Minnesota, and they were flying back from Minneapolis. And he apparently watched USC's game or some film or whatever. All right. Anyway, he had mentioned that he thought J.J. McCarthy was the best quarterback in the country, and I'm chuckling because I'm thinking of what Harbaugh said. And he said, "Yeah, I mentioned that I thought J.J. McCarthy was the best quarterback in the country, and I just want you to know I watched USC play on the plane ride back, and the other guy, he's pretty good. He's pretty good too. He's pretty good too." And everybody starts laughing, right? And so he was kind of making fun of himself. I'm like, well, yeah, Caleb Williams is, you know what I mean? He's going to be the number one.
Him when he said that before?
I don't know. I wasn't around that. Okay. But so he was kind of making fun of himself, like, yeah, Caleb Williams is and then he went on to say, yeah, we'll still take our guy, but it's kind of like Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Kobe or Michael. We love our guy, but it was funny. And then he told a story real quickly, Carlos, about McCarthy and some of the throws he was making. He's like, oh yeah, this one play. It's funny because I actually wrote about this play, but he got the game wrong at first. He said, oh yeah, it's at Nebraska. And McCarthy dropped back. He said, JJ dropped back. He's rolling to his left. So he's rolling to the sideline where Harbaugh was on the Michigan sideline. And he's rolling. And Jim Harbaugh says he starts yelling out, run, because he saw that he had room to get the first down marker and get out of bounds. And he says he sees him about to starting to cock back to throw. And he's like, no. And then McCarthy at the last second throws it and hits Roman Wilson in the back of the end zone, sort of across his body. He was out of balance. It's just a strike. I don't know how long it was, 20, 25 yards, whatever. And even when I was watching his home, because I had to write about it, and even the announcers were like going crazy over the play and the throw. And Harbaugh said, I'm kind of calling myself out here because I didn't want him to do that, but he did it. And he said he made the throw and the touchdown, and he turned around and he just stared at me. And so I thought that was kind of, he doesn't normally talk like that. He sounded different when he was describing it, Carlos. He was, it was interesting to see that side of him. And I told Reiner Saban, our colleague, after that story, I said, that's what the players see and the parents and probably a lot of the alums. We don't really ever get to see that. He was poking fun at himself and laughing, and it was unusual. Really unusual.
Yeah, that is. He's. It's nice to see that he can open up more often now. I think it's it would be nice to see it a little bit more, but yeah, he can be a little hot and cold, but yeah, I think this season he knows the team he has, he knows what's going on, he knows that this team looks almost unstoppable, right? I mean, again, until they beat your Nittany Lions, that's what you keep looking forward to. Once they beat them in state college, then you'll finally crown them champs, right?
The whole fan base is looking forward. They're a little bored, to be honest with you. I mean, they love the winning, but they're a little bored, and they wanted to play somebody. Of course, that goes with risk. But
what about Michigan State? Bored. 2 weeks.
They're playing football. They're playing football.
I believe they are. That's going to be
poor Michigan State.
That is just going to be awful. That could be a dangerous game. It can get out of hand, and it's going to be in East Lansing.
The only thing I'll say, stranger things have happened. The only thing I'll say,
now don't even start.
No. Let me finish. Our pal and colleague, esteemed colleague, the terrific Graham Couch, who writes for the Lansing State Journal, our sister paper. I think either tweeted out or wrote or hinted that there could be a quarterback change in order, because Michigan State's been on a bye, and I want to say they're playing Rutgers. I think they're playing Rutgers Saturday.
Yeah.
And there could be a quarterback change. Wouldn't that be something if that quarterback change somehow leads to at least a competitive game for a half or something against Michigan? That would be
probably not something.
Probably not, but I don't expect it'll go very well for the Spartans.
Yeah, it's going to get. How bad will it get? I mean, this is just I don't know.
Feel for him. Yeah,
does Jim Harbaugh know Harlan Barnett at all? Does he like him? Does he have any?
That's a good question. I was thinking, he wouldn't have taken it easy on Mel Tucker at all, right?
No.
But Harlan Barnett's a D'Antonio guy, and D'Antonio and Harbaugh definitely had some exchanges, not necessarily face to face, but kind of through social media. They went after each other.
Is D'Antonio still on? Is he going to be on the sidelines the rest of the year?
I don't know if he's going to go back up to the box on the sideline. That's a good question, but he's going to be around the rest of the year. He'll surely be at the game. Yeah, and Barnett's his guy. So maybe by association, he could, plus he's born and bred to hate Michigan State, right? So
yeah,
to detest them, and he played against them himself. And yeah, so
it's going to be rough.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. But, who knows with Harbaugh? I would imagine he'd signed a contract. They do seem to have a really, really good team this year. And it's still a little hard to say too much. On the other hand, you don't just go beat a team 52-10, even a below average team like Minnesota. It's still a Big Ten team. It's on the road. PJ Fleck's a pretty solid coach. At some point you got to say, okay, they might be pretty good. They might be pretty good, and this is like the second or third coach in a row now to say, "Wow, that's something over there." You don't hear that all the time from coaches.
Yeah, and do you think there seems to be a restlessness with Harbaugh? It always feels like the NFL is always there's a pull there for him. Do you think that if he wins a national title? Is that it? Do you think he's going to want to go and all right, I've done this. I've climbed the mountain. Now let me go back to the NFL and try to win the Super Bowl. I came so close to winning and be the first guy since Pete Carroll to win a college and NFL title.
Well, that's a good question. I mean, maybe. On the other hand, he could, if he feels like he could reel some off here and really establish something historical at Michigan, in a way that his hero Bo Schembechler could not and did not, and even Lloyd Carter's won one. I don't want to minimize it. Winning a national championship, winning a national championship in college football is really hard, but or any sport really. But yeah, no, who knows? I mean, you get older, maybe who knows. It's hard to know what
if he hadn't been flirting with the NFL as much as he does almost every year, I would say that there's more, merit to maybe that of let me have this dynasty, this Saban like Bear Bryant, let me be that, But it just seems like the NFL, it's an itch he wants to scratch. It's just the Super Bowl and it's been, I think 4 coaches have done it. So he wants to, I don't know. It's only he can answer that of where does he think his legacy lies, and he
didn't flirt. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, he's who knows what he wants to do, what he thinks is most important. And it's someone like him, maybe he needs a different kind of challenge, maybe it's humans.
He might. I don't remember him flirting as much with the league this past offseason as he did the year before.
Well, he had a virtual interview with the Broncos, so he still interviewed for a job, that's something.
No, you're right. I guess it just didn't get as close as it did with Minnesota, but the year before. But no, it might just be because it's out there, because as Christopher Walken said to Brendan Fraser in Blast from the Past. Did you ever see Blast from the Past?
Yes, a long time ago. It's old.
It's underrated. Yeah, it's an older movie. Well, older for us. It's an underrated little movie. But anyway, he's got an adult son. He's trying to explain the birds and the bees to his son, who is in his 30s because he's lived in a bomb shelter for all these years. And he's trying to explain the world to him. Finally, I think he's ready. He's ready to learn this in his 30s. Anyway, he's explaining how it works. The sperm finds the egg, and it goes from there, and life is created. And Brendan Fraser's character says to his dad, who's played by Christopher Walken, "But why? Why does the sperm go to the egg?" And Christopher Walken says, because it must. So that's what we're talking about, right? Because it must. Because he must go to the NFL. Is that what you're saying?
And who is Jim Harbaugh in this metaphor? I guess. Well, I guess we can let the listener decide.
It's just life. It's life that life,
it must,
right?
Yeah, that is perfect.
We don't have life unless it happens, right?
Unless Jim Harbaugh goes to the NFL, things cannot be right with the universe.
Because it must is what keeps life moving and keep life going, right? So
let me ask you: is there right now? Okay, get your turban out. Look at your crystal ball, like Carnac, the great Carnac, Jimmy Carson. Is it more likely, whether it's 51%, is it more likely that Jim Harbaugh ends his career at Michigan, or that he goes to the NFL?
Oh,
he's going to be 60. He's 59. He's going to be 60 in December.
He probably wants to. I just don't know. Somebody's got to have him. That's the wild card in this.
He's going to get knocked. He's going to get the door knocked on all the time. He's winning.
Does the NFL still,
either whether he wins a national title or not, being in the CFP,
he's been away.
Having an elite team.
He will have been away at that point. Almost 10 years or whatever. That's a long time. The game. I mean, I know he's kept up with the game, and one of the things that makes him such a great coach is he's constantly looking inward and trying to figure out new systems and new staff and what can I do differently and change. And he's a tinkerer, and I've always respected that about him. I don't know that he gets enough credit for that. He's sort of egoless in that way, and you don't think of him that way because you think that's Jim Harbaugh and he's got the quirks and all that, but he's kind of egoless in a way, and I think that's always a really good sign in a coach. But will the NFL have him? That's the question, man. I don't know.
Don't give me. I don't know. 51%.
No. Yes, I'm saying I don't know that they will. I'd say
you're saying he stays at Michigan.
Yeah, I think he's going to stay at Michigan because even if he wants to go, he wanted to go 2 years ago, and they backed out. The Vikings backed out. And I don't know how he interviewed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, he might want to go to the NFL, but I think being away that long, I say he stays at Michigan.
So one thing that I think he goes eventually. Maybe it's down the line, more than a few years, but I think that what he said was interesting about the contract, and then you want to be somewhere that people want you, that they appreciate your work and they want you. And that to me was almost a cryptic way of saying, at some point, if let's just say the administration or the athletic director doesn't happen to want me, or I don't feel as appreciated, bye, I'm gone. I will be here as long as I'm appreciated and people reward me accordingly. But when that changes, then I'm going to go to whatever, the Houston, Texans or wherever, whoever wants me and appreciates what I do. I'm going to go there. I'm going to go where I'm wanted, whether it's Michigan or the NFL. I think that's what basically he was kind of saying. And right now it happens to be Michigan. So, and he's right. He's right. And he said that this is true of anybody in any walk of life, in any job. I think he looked at the reporters and probably said, like even you schlubs. So yeah, I mean, you should do that. If you're not appreciated, if your work isn't appreciated, then you should look elsewhere for employment. So yeah, and that's coaching. I mean, it's itinerant. You got to move around. It's just you got to go where the jobs are.
Yeah, and some coaches are a lot more like that than others. I mean, the Pistons had the Pistons had a coach win a title, and he's one of the most famously itinerant coaches in the history of modern professional sports, and Larry Brown, right? So,
yeah,
who, by the way, also went from college to pro and won at both, won a title at both levels. But maybe he does. Maybe he still does. We'll see. I don't know that the NFL. Who knows? If you win a title, then it'd probably be a lot easier for a general manager and owner to sell him to a fan base if he's coming off a national championship. So that would change things too. But all right, we need to take one more quick break and come back and wrap this show up with Carl's favorite thing. I've recused myself from this portion of the show, mostly because I just want to hear Carlos talk about how awesome his life is, because it is an awesome life.
Pretty awesome.
It's fabulous. Well, you're fabulous. All right, we'll be right back with more Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn. Welcome back to Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn. All right, what you got, Carlos? You got 30 seconds.
My favorite thing, Shawn, is that so my wife got her job was her company was kind enough and good enough to give their employees a mental health day today when we're recording. And she took full advantage of it. And we got to spend the day together in the morning and run a couple of errands together. And we went to our little downtown area in our neighborhood, and a diner we've been to that's been there for decades. And we had just the sweetest waitress. And I had the Eggs Benedict. She had a Texas toast sandwich. We had home fries. And then we went over to Trader Joe's and did a little shopping, a little quick excursion. And, this is kind of the fun part of being sort of empty nesters with your kids gone, that. And you get to kind of sometimes spend the day with your spouse and enjoy a little bit of life and take the time. And I don't think we probably do that enough. But it was really nice. And even though I'm working today, and if Anjanette or Nicole or Kirk are listening, I worked the full 7.5 hours. So don't worry, it's to the minute, Shawn, by the way, full day for me at work. But yeah, it was good to get a little bit of time in the morning and really sort of decompress and enjoy a little bit of the day before everything gets really busy. So it was really nice. And I think we should do that more often. I think we need to take better care of our mental health. And with everything, it's so easy to pack your day with too many things, work and other concerns. But if you can carve out a little bit of time, and this is also, especially even though it wasn't my day off, I was really upset last night because my Dodgers lost again. And they're about to get kicked out of the NLDS, and our TV stopped working. And I was like, oh, everything's coming. Everything's falling apart. So today to have that little island of goodness was enjoyable. So I look forward to doing it again.
That was awesome. My favorite thing was enjoying a chili dog with you at the Lions game. You taught me that it's okay to eat 2 hot dogs as long as you only put chili on one of them. and then you put mustard or ketchup or whatever it is on the other. And that was fun. That was a good trick. And no, it's just fun it's fun. I think I've said this before, but I really enjoy sitting and watching the Lions games with you. We're surrounded by all the other colleagues. For whatever reason, it worked out that they put our seats next to each other, and I really enjoy that. And it's something I look forward to every Sunday. So that was my favorite thing, is sitting and watching the game with you, and enjoying a second hot dog without the chili, because that way you don't feel like a total glutton.
Well, I appreciate that. Although you had one with a lot of onions, and I had to smell it for a while, so it was a little bit tough on me. And as much as I try to keep changing the little name placard so that I sit next to Mitch Albom more often than you, but it doesn't work out. You always kind of find a way to sit really close to me. So,
well, I don't have anything to do with the placards. By the way, Eggs Benedict, you're an Eggs Benedict guy. You're coming over for a Lions game in the very near future for Eggs Benedict, right?
I hope
and
so.
Dutch baby pancakes.
Oh yeah, I love American breakfast. Is just one of the best things that our country has given the world. It's just the perfect combination of sweet and savory. I don't know if you're a world traveler, you probably know this better, but it's such a great combination.
Yeah, a lot of people,
candy.
A lot of Europeans think that our breakfasts are way too sweet, but yeah, at least that part of the breakfast. And then, but and maybe too greasy, but the English breakfast, they put beans and blood pudding and tomato and mushroom and an egg. You know what I mean? That the classic English breakfast. I could do that for you too, but I'm going to make you Eggs Benedict.
A long time ago, I was invited to a friend of ours, a classmate. I'm going to name drop Mark Stein, who worked for ESPN for a long time, the New York Times. We went to school together, and he was a soccer nut way back in the day, before anybody was a soccer nut, and before it was cool. And we went to see some kind of World Cup qualifier at his house one morning, and I think it was Scotland was playing somebody, and his wife, as a tribute, made haggis, and it was disgusting. And it was I swore to never. And actually, it was England and Scotland. I think it was like bangers and mash too. And I was like, "What? I'd never had any of that." And I was like, "Why do people do this to themselves?" Like the English food is just, other than probably fish and chips, I don't know that they've contributed a lot to the world cuisine.
Well, their food's actually come a long way, especially in some of the cities. But that's a different subject for another podcast.
Maybe a book. And I know you should write a book about it.
Yeah. And I know you got to we got to get Robin, our producer, out of here. We need to thank Robin Chan, of course, who makes this podcast possible. We need to thank Kirkland Crawford, the sports editor, Anjanette Delgado, the editor.
Executive editor.
She's the executive editor. Ganette's
You're
always
call
doing
you
this.
You're wrong.
And we need to thank Nicole. Yeah, right. We need to thank Nicole Avery Nichols for allowing us to exist, basically. And I have jobs at the Free Press, but I guess I'm at the podcast too. We need to thank who else, Carlos? The listeners,
our listener, our devoted listener, who's always happy to hear the dulcet tones of Shawn Windsor.
No, they're happy. They're happy to hear you. Mostly, though, I want to thank you for putting up with me and for sitting here. It was fun, as always.
Absolutely. Let's do it again.
Let's do it again. You can find us wherever you find your favorite podcasts, Spotify, Apple. Rate us, subscribe, let us know what you think, and mostly keep listening. We're grateful. Until next week, right, Carlos?
Yes.
All right. When we will be back with more Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn.